Welcome to the Heads Up podcast, brought to you by the National Migraine Centre, the only UK charity treating headache and migraine. Visit our website to book your appointment with a world-class headache doctor wherever you are in the UK. There is no need for a referral, you can refer yourself. Our headache specialist doctors are looking forward to helping you soon.
Welcome back to this episode of our Heads Up podcast, and we're concentrating at the moment on cluster headache. And I'm particularly interested in cluster headache in children and young people, which is why I'm delighted to invite Rachael and Frederick Wood as guests on this episode. They have got a lot of information of their shared experience, but Rachael is also the Officer for Children and Young People for Ouch, so we'll be talking a bit about that. So welcome to both of you. And do you want to just introduce yourself first, Frederick, and tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Frederick. I'm 17 years old. I'm from Highland, Perthshire, and I was diagnosed with cluster headaches at the age of 11.
Okay. And Rachael?
Hi, I'm Rachael, and as you've probably guessed, I'm Frederick's mum, and I've been with him throughout this journey for the last 6 years of negotiating what life is like when you have cluster headaches.
So one of the reasons I wanted to do this episode is because a lot of people have heard of cluster headache, probably not as many as we hoped, but have heard of cluster headache occurring in adults. But it's probably rarer and less well recognised in children, and some people don't even realise that children can get it. So you've had cluster headaches since the age of 11. Were you previously suffering from any other headache conditions as a younger child?
No, the only kind of like headache I'd ever experienced was just like your bog standard headache. Or I did have as well chronic glue a few years before, so I had earache quite a lot, but that's nothing compared to a cluster.
Yeah. So can you remember your first cluster headache? Can you tell me, what were you doing? How did it hit you?
Well, I mean, a lot of the things, especially before I was diagnosed, it was so traumatic that as like a safety measure, my brain has like blocked a lot of it out.
Right.
So I only have quite vague memories of before I got oxygen treatment.
Right.
But with the very first attack, I remember it started just as we thought it was an earache, because I'd had them quite regularly previously, and it just got worse and worse and worse, and we didn't know what was happening, and it was horrific. But I mean, my mum's probably better to ask, because I physically don't remember that much about what was happening at the time.
Yeah. Were you at secondary school or primary school, age 11?
Primary school. I was in primary 6, I think it was. Yeah.
And were you at school when it started, or were you at home?
It was started during lockdown. So although I was doing schoolwork, I was doing it from home at the time.
Rachael, maybe you can fill in. Do you remember how long that attack lasted? Was it sort of an hour to 3 hours, or was it more fleeting?
No, it started very slowly actually, and got exponentially worse and worse. So I as well thought it was an earache to start with. It looked the same. He was holding his ear, bending his head over, saying he was in pain. But as the days progressed, that pain got so much worse. And I thought to myself, as a parent, I know what earache looks like in a child. I've treated it before with paracetamol and a hot water bottle. This was something else entirely. As a parent, you know your child, you know every sound they make as a baby, you know what cries they make for different reasons. And I had never heard Frederick make the kind of screams and crying he was making with this pain. And it must be hardwired into you as a parent, but I was thinking, this is something else. This is something beyond what I've ever experienced as a parent, trying to comfort my child when he's hurt himself or something's going on. So it's almost like my brain was saying, you need help. This is not something that's normal. You need to do something about this, get him some help.
Yeah.
And of course, because it was in lockdown, it was very difficult to get that help through nobody's fault. But of course, the GPs were closed. We started by ringing them, obviously, and trying to explain that level of pain and agitation. It was so raw and so visceral. Trying to get that meaning across to a GP was so difficult because obviously they take a lot of calls from worried mums whose child have got earache or headache or tummy ache, and trying to convince them that it was something else than the normal was very difficult.
Yeah. So, Frederick, it sounds to me as if you were very lucky in having a mum who immediately
Yes.
thought, red flags here, this isn't normal, and believed you and didn't
Yes.
suspect you of faking or anything like that.
Oh yeah, definitely. If if Mum hadn't sort of advocated me for me then, I don't know where I would be now.
Yeah. As an 11-year-old, you're
Yeah,
totally reliant on your parents, aren't you, to be
Yeah.
yeah.
fighting your corner. So, Rachael, how long did it take for you to kind of work out that this was cluster headache? How did that happen?
Well, as lockdown started to ease a little bit, we were able to get a one-on-one GP's appointment, obviously with all PPE, etc., in place. And Frederick played a wonderful card in that he managed to have an attack right in front of the GP.
Yeah,
So well done to him. And to give the GP their due, they watched this happen and just said, I have never seen anything like this in a child.
Yeah.
And thank you for being so honest as to say that, to them. And immediately referred us to pediatric neurology in the main hospital where we live. And within a day, the neurologist called and said, tell me what's happening. We explained everything. And he asked an awful lot of questions. They were very thorough in trying to
yeah,
find out what the problem was, right from questions about his birth right through to his current age to see what it was, and asking me what he looked like, what I could hear what it sounded like, because Frederick was just screaming all the time with hardly any breaks at that point.
Mm.
And obviously, we arranged to go in and see the neurologist, and we'd kept a diary of every attack that Frederick was having, and they were so frequent. They were all day, every day, just a few minutes, sometimes just a half an hour between the attacks. They were absolutely relentless.
There were breaks in between the attacks. It sort of came and then off again, and then
Yes.
off again, and then off again.
Yes.
And how many
Yes.
days was it before you'd been keeping that diary? Are we talking days or weeks?
By the time we actually saw the neurologist in person, it would be about 7 to 10 days we'd been keeping the diary.
Okay.
And you could see that it was just attack after attack. So he looked at that very carefully. Obviously, he didn't know which kind of primary headache it could be at that point. So there were an awful lot of questions, which is obviously very good.
Yeah.
The problem that we came up against was that Frederick didn't actually have any autonomic symptoms at that time that are usually associated with cluster headache. So no tearing eye, no eye that was red, no runny nose, etc. Although he did have the restlessness, he's literally writhing in agony. The pain is so bad. So maybe the neurologist thought, well, there's no autonomic symptoms. Can it really be cluster headache? So I don't know, but it was kind of suggested, and then we moved on from it because he didn't have this corroborating symptoms. And so they tried everything else they could think of. So all kinds of medication was thrown at us, one after another. None of them worked. And Frederick was just getting worse and worse all the time. I mean, this was our normal now. I had to stop work. I was just at home with him all day. It was in some ways like having a newborn baby again. I couldn't leave him for any length of time. He needed constant, attention and trying to recover from the attacks as we got that bit of respite.
Yeah.
A very difficult time.
What time of year was it, out of interest? Can you remember?
Yes, we can remember. It's the classic
yes,
cluster headache time of the spring when the clocks
yes.
change between March and April.
Yeah, that is a time when we see far more people referring themselves to us at the National Migraine Centre with cluster headaches, or what they're wondering if they're cluster headaches, around those spring and autumn equinoxes seems to be a key time. And was there any timing pattern throughout the day? I know it's sometimes called the alarm clock headache. Was that a feature?
Yeah, they always came at the same time, especially at night. So as soon as it got to like 8 o'clock, I was going into bed. As soon as I got into bed, they hit from like 8 o'clock at night when I was just getting into bed right through to the early hours of the morning, every night, like, without change.
Right. So I'm guessing both of you weren't getting much sleep throughout this.
No.
Oh, completely exhausted all the time. Yeah.
So the medications that you were tried on, Frederick, I'm guessing were probably tablets of various different descriptions. Were they
Yeah.
tablets that would normally be used for migraine, or were they? Do you remember? Were they
I
sort of
think they just sort of threw everything at me.
right? So
Um,
I think
pain
they
free.
they went down the route of painkillers for nerve pain.
Uh-huh.
So the usual prescriptions for that kind of pain. And we were at the point of trying possibly to use some anti-seizure medication, but we hadn't actually started. It had been suggested. And we had a turning point because in desperation, Frederick's dad and myself had taken him to A&E because we just think we're so out of our depth here, and this child has been screaming for 5 hours. We need some help. So we took him along to A&E, and the doctor there, I don't know if they knew about cluster headaches. They didn't mention them, but after he'd been screaming in A&E for quite a number of hours, they said, well, let's just try him on some oxygen. Now he put him on a cannula with a very low flow, which really shouldn't have had an effect on his attack, but it did stop. So we'll never know whether it just stopped anyway, or whether it did have some effect. We'll never know that. But Frederick's dad and myself, we remembered that as the one time where it had stopped on its own.
mhm.
Wow.
So we actually mentioned to the neurologist at the next appointment we had that this had happened. And before we went on to the anti-seizure medication, which doesn't have very pleasant side effects for a 12-year-old, who's 12 at the time, could we just have a stab at oxygen just to see? Because we had nothing to lose at that point. And, he agreed to that. And I'll let Frederick say what happened after that point, maybe.
Yeah, we had oxygen delivered. I had an attack. My mum shoved a rebreather mask on my face, and I was writhing so much she had to hold it on me because it was getting knocked off.
Right.
And 15 minutes later, the attack stopped, and it was like a miracle come true. And we tried it next time I had an attack. We tried it again, and it stopped after 15 minutes. And it was this incredible thing to finally have something to make it stop. And it was like I can't get across how like happy we were when we discovered it worked.
I'm really getting a sense of relief from looking at the big grin on your face.
Yeah,
You
it
described
was just
that.
this like incredible feeling to know that we had something that would make it stop. It was amazing.
Yeah. So one of the things I sometimes say to patients in clinic is, you don't follow the textbook. And that is obviously the case with you because as doctors, we're taught, there's this group of symptoms and the autonomic symptoms are really a key part of the diagnosis, as well as the agitation and the fact that the headache is completely side-locked on one side. But it is a variable condition, and some people like yourself don't have very predominant
Yeah, I
autonomic
I
symptoms.
didn't show the autonomic symptoms till like a couple of years ago,
That's really interesting. So what sort of autonomic symptoms do you get now?
Well, I have, of course, the agitation during attacks, but I have really extreme fatigue straight after attacks as well. I also have, this is during attacks, predominantly a very tearing eye, and it's always my right eye that's constantly weeping,
Mm,
and my sinuses are always quite inflamed, so I can never breathe through my nose.
yeah,
And they're always there during attacks, but also they can sometimes be precursors to attacks as well. So
right.
like this morning, for instance, this morning and last night, my eye has been weeping constantly, and it only stopped like half an hour ago.
Oh gosh. Well, thank you for coming on. I understand you've also got a bit of a virus, so double thanks to you. There you go. So, just going back to the oxygen, so was that then the mainstay of treatment? Has that been the main thing
Yeah,
you use over the last 6 years?
that is my go-to for an attack because it lives with me basically. It goes everywhere that I go. I have it in my bedroom, we have it in the kitchen, we have it in both cars, we have it at school, we have it at work. You can't move for oxygen masks as well. And it
Have you tried the on-demand valve, or do you just
so
use?
it's my that is what I use, 10 minutes of that and I'm pain free.
That's fantastic. How long does that last? It sounds as if you normally have several attacks in a day when you're
Yeah.
out.
So I use it as an abortive. So I'll start with an attack and I'll start the oxygen and it'll stop the attack within 10 minutes. But that doesn't stop it coming back later in the day. Where I am at the moment, I'm usually having like one attack out of cycle, at least one attack every couple of days. So usually that one attack will be my attack for the day.
Right.
So the oxygen will stop it. But I'm currently in cycle, so I'm on other medication as well as the oxygen to prevent it.
So tell us about that medication. What are you taking?
Well, I have two more types of medication. I have another abortive, which is a Zomig nasal spray, Zomatriptan,
Hmm.
which I take if I either don't respond to oxygen or don't have it with me. For instance, so if say we're out shopping or something, we've left the oxygen in the car and it's on the other side of town, so I can't get back to it quick enough, I'll take a Zomig spray, which works within 5 minutes and it will keep it off for the rest of the day,
Okay.
which is incredible. And then I'm also taking 480 milligrams of Rapamil a day, which will keep it at bay while I'm in cycle.
Yeah. How long do your cycles go on for usually?
This one I'm in at the moment is usually sort of October to January kind of time,
Oh,
and
okay.
then I usually have a smaller one in the summer around springtime usually, but that's quite small usually compared to this one.
Okay. Yeah. Have you ever used the sumatriptan injections?
Not the injections. I think I used one of those once. I didn't really like it, but I did have sumatriptan tablets for quite a while, but I would only ever use them in like the worst case scenario, like oxygen wasn't doing anything at all, like because I had really extreme side effects from the tablets.
Mm.
So after an attack, not only would I be feeling the extreme fatigue from the attack itself, but also like true exhaustion from the sumatriptan mixed with like my joints would hurt. I'd get like a tight band across my chest. I wouldn't be able to think straight, all from the side effects of the sumatriptan. So as soon as we got the Zomig sprays, and that meant I could switch to those with no side effects.
Interesting. Yeah. I do find that we use sumatriptan a lot for people with migraine, and I do find that many of them do get side effects where they don't with the zolmitriptans. And of
Mhm.
course, zolmitriptan nasal spray is partly absorbed through the lining of the nose, so it really gets in there very effectively. But that's really good that you're not getting side effects
Yeah,
as well, and also nice and portable.
yes, exactly.
You're on a train or out, as you say,
Yeah,
in
I
shops or
have
something.
I have one in fact next to me, so from my desk over there, and I have one in my blazer pocket for school. I have one in my school bag. I have one in the car. I have one, I have them. Every like bag I ever used has one in as well.
Do you find that you're mostly using the oxygen then, and then just the Zomig as a sort of backup? You're not using Zomig every single day.
No, if I have oxygen with me and I have an attack, that'll be my first port of call. But if I don't have oxygen with me, I'll use a Zomig spray.
Yeah. Did you have any investigations when you were being diagnosed? Did they say, "Oh, you should have a brain scan" or anything like that? Or
Yeah, I've had two MRI scans when they were trying to figure out what was wrong with me.
yeah.
And I actually, for instance, I think my first MRI scan, I actually had an attack while in the scanner, but
Oh,
that didn't show anything for them to try and help me diagnose. They wanted to check I didn't have a brain tumor, I think.
yeah. Yes. I think any child, particularly who has severe headaches, I think is likely to have a scan. But with
Yes,
cluster headache, usually nothing shows up on that scan.
yeah.
So from the first attack that you had until the definitive, yes, this is cluster headache, how long did that take? Was that months?
It was 14 months.
14 months, yeah.
So 14 months of try this, try that, try the other, and
Yeah.
agonizing thing until that casualty officer said, here, try this oxygen. And
Yeah.
a light bulb moment for everybody concerned. Do you still see the pediatric neurologist? Are they still following you up, or have they kind of gone, oh, you're on some treatment, absolutely fine, carry on?
No, I still see my pediatric neurologist. Still see her fairly regularly, although I have just been moved across to adult neurology now, just the other week. But
That was
yeah, I
going to
have
be my
been.
next question. Yes,
Yeah,
because you're at that what we call that sort of transition zone between 17 and 18.
yeah,
People do get moved about into adult services.
yeah. Up till just the other week, I have been seeing my neurologist. I think it was every 6 months I had to catch up with her.
Yeah,
But then we're in constant contact with her secretary. If whenever we need more medication or repeat or anything like that, I've got a direct line to her. She
brilliant.
can get us anything we need.
Yeah. What since you've discovered the oxygen and that the Zomig nasal spray really helps, have you tried any other physical techniques? I mean, like I hear of people using ice cold shower water or ice packs on their head or drinking Red Bull or any of. Have you tried it or you haven't
We
really needed
we
it?
tried all of those before I was diagnosed, and nothing did anything.
Okay, okay. And I'm just conscious that you're now sort of coming to the end of your school career. Has having cluster headache made any had any effect on your decisions about what your studies are or what you're going to do next?
Big impact actually. So last year I completed my national fives, which is Scottish equivalent of GCSE,
Uh-huh.
and when doing those, I had the worst cycle I've ever had right in the middle of them.
Wow.
Of Again, same as it was is at the moment. It was from October right through to January.
Mhm.
I missed 13 weeks of school
Ooh,
and completely. I hadn't done anything during those 2 weeks, but I was so ill with clusters,
yeah,
which meant when I came back to school, I basically had like I think 2 months to do nearly an entire GCSE course.
yeah,
Instead of doing it over, we'd done half of it the year before. Instead of doing half the course over a year, I had about 2 months to do it,
yeah.
which meant I had to basically give up on all of my classes and do it all individual learning with the people support team at my school. Which I had to study a different book in English. I had to study different parts of maths because I had physically didn't have the time to learn all the coursework,
Yeah,
and that was quite stressful trying to get that all
yeah.
done in such short amount of time I had.
Were you attack free during that time? Once the bout finished, did you have a number of months where you didn't have any attacks, or did I pick up from earlier that you occasionally get sort of
Yeah, I'm chronic, so I still have attacks every other day when I'm out of cycle.
right?
But it didn't. It sometimes it takes, although the cycle stops, you can tell when it's stopped. It still sometimes takes a day or two to like fully calm down.
Yeah,
So still going into school, I started going back to school part time. I just went in every afternoon for a week and then full time after that to try and get me back in. Because for me, one of the triggers for me, although there are no known triggers for me, is tiredness.
right.
And so I have to get up very early to get to school. And so getting up to school, having an entire day at school, and then coming home and getting up early the next day is a trigger for me
Yeah,
sometimes. So we
yeah.
have to be really careful on easing myself back into that.
A big impact. And have school been supportive and helpful? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure they haven't had very many children with a similar story.
no. My school has been incredible. We have two part-time nurses that are there whenever there are pupils in the school. I mean, they were overjoyed to have a pupil with an actual medical condition to look after. But the school have been great. I have oxygen at school, and every teacher in the school knows about it and knows what to do. Especially if I have an attack, say in their class, they know what to do and stuff. But
At the
with
moment, are you studying for, is it hires?
yeah, highest so A level.
Yeah,
Uh, um, but with the problem I had before that, I was just getting through my National 5 exams actually.
yeah,
Because again, another trigger for me is extreme stress. Exams can be quite stressful.
of course.
Um, but I think the most stressful thing is actually trying to get the exam accommodations that I need for clusters. For instance, I need to have a separate room because I have oxygen in the room, and if I have an attack, it all has to stop, and I might not be able to continue and everything. But the main problem was actually the SQA, which is the Scottish Exam Board, don't have a protocol for chronically ill children.
Right.
So they have a protocol for like it's called the exceptional circumstances. So if you're hit by a bus on the way into the exam and you can't make it, they'll make up a grade from other things. But they don't have anything for a chronically ill child who is on track to meet the exam and then can't because I've had a cluster attack or something else. there is no protocol for that. So school had to advocate on my behalf to the SQA to say, well, what do we do if he doesn't make up? He's done all his schoolwork, he's got it already. He was waiting outside the exam room and then had a really bad cluster attack. What do we do?
Yeah.
And so the SQA and school came to agreement that they would collect evidence throughout the year and all my coursework and do what they did in COVID and make up an exam result from coursework. But there isn't, we had to fight for that through the SQA. There is no, right, you're chronically ill, you get this.
Yeah.
Which is nonsense in my mind. It should be, like, I can't be the only chronically ill child in Scotland who's doing exams.
Yeah. I'm sure you're right, but this is one of the reasons why I think we need to all be trying to raise awareness of cluster headache a bit more, because it's not a vanishingly rare condition. There are people
exactly.
not as many as there are have migraine, but still, it's definitely in need of sensible thing.
And now I'm on doing my hires, and I specifically, after knowing what happened last year with missing so much of school, I had to pick. I have 5 higher slots, and I'm doing 4 subjects, and I've done 4 subjects that I know that I can catch up on if I miss things.
Yeah.
Is that I don't want to do like a really difficult science-based subject that I can't catch up on a load of stuff if I miss 13 weeks again,
Yeah.
And I've specifically left time in my timetable so I have these times to catch up on things if I do miss things.
Yeah. So Rachel, can I ask you, what would you say has been the impact on family life? I don't know, Frederick, I didn't ask you. Have you got any siblings?
It's just me.
Oh, it's just you. So Rachel, it must have been particularly hard at the beginning, but still watching Frederick with the impact of having a chronic condition, how has that affected you and family life?
Well, obviously very, very difficult in the beginning. I said it was like having a newborn again. So much attention. I'm quite glad that Frederick didn't have any siblings, because how he would have coped trying to manage Frederick's symptoms with other children to take care of as well, being impossible, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
My husband and I splitting caring for him between us. We're both self-employed, so that gave us a little bit of flexibility. Had we both been on 9-to-5 jobs, I think that would have been even harder as well. We have just become used to a new norm now. We've lived with it for 6 years, so we plan to go out for a meal, or we're going out as a family somewhere. We basically have a checklist when we're leaving the house. Have you got your Verapamil? Have you got your nasal sprays? Have you got oxygen in the car? Is there enough in the canister? Do we need to put a spare one in? Where are we going? Well, we need to take the oxygen in with us. There's a whole list of things we just go through now. It's second nature. And I would say to anyone that's starting out on this journey, it is extremely overwhelming at first, and no one can blame you for feeling like life will never be the same again. And in some ways it won't be, but in other ways you will navigate your way through it. You will find a new normal. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and we are living proof of that, And as the child grows up, they'll start to take more responsibility for their own treatment as well. So when Frederick was younger, obviously we controlled everything when he took tablets and what we did and didn't do. But as he's grown up and become a teenager, and now he's a young man, he actually manages his own medication more or less, because he has to do that when he goes off to university in September. We've kind of tried to make a transfer of the responsibility from us as parents to him, so that he is learning to do that when he's out there on his own, and we're not there anymore to rush and pick up the oxygen mask for him, or to reorder his prescriptions and those kind of things, So we tried to manage it when he was younger, when we got the diagnosis and we had some relief from the oxygen, to say to him, so he could understand it, some children carry an EpiPen, some children are diabetic, they need to inject themselves. This is what you've got, and this is how you will manage it. And this will be part of your life now, but it's not going to stop you doing what you want to do, because we've got it under control. We know how to manage the worst times, and we know now how to make the best of your good times. So when we know you're out of cycle, we're going to do a lot more things together, because we can't do them when you're confined to the house for certain months of the year. And so we've managed that, and we've lived like that for 6 years, and that is just our normal now. And so we might get an invitation for something in October, and we'll say, no, I'm sorry, we can't do that. Frederick's in cycle. It's just how it is. And yet we'll go on holiday in July knowing that it's extremely unlikely that anything's going to happen to him.
Right. So have you done holidays abroad? Is it possible to do that with oxygen?
We have indeed, yeah. We've made all the arrangements. We've filled in lots of paperwork. We've done lots of emails with different companies and things we need to do. We've given the people in customs and excise and security a big thrill because it's not often they get oxygen
Yes.
canisters at pressure coming through. Always
You can see
causes
them
a
all crowding
stir.
around it going, oh, what's that?
Yeah.
It's that lady over there. Very
We
interesting.
obviously we carry diagnosis letters from consultants saying, Frederick needs to carry all this stuff when he goes abroad. You've had some interesting trips with the Scouts, haven't you, Frederick? There's
Yes,
attacks
a
happening.
couple of years ago, I was on a scout trip and we were climbing up a mountain in the Yorkshire Dales, and I had oxygen on top of a mountain, which was very, very fun. While the people behind me were climbing up a cliff, I was sat at the bottom having oxygen, and it's the best view I've ever had while having oxygen, I can say.
You really are taking this in your stride now that you know effective way
Yeah,
of managing it,
it's like Mum was saying, not letting it stop me. I've never let it stop me. I know, yes, I might have an attack, but that's not going to stop me from doing what I was doing before. There's a fantastic photo of me playing the piano while holding an oxygen mask on my face. Like I don't want it the same with climbing up a mountain and having oxygen. I don't want it to control my life. It's just going to be a small part of it.
Yeah. So you mentioned, Rachael, about university. Have you applied? Do you know what the plan is? Where are you going to go?
Yes. Well, firstly, when choosing a university, not only did I have to think about where did I want to study, but I also had to think about where can I get oxygen if I want to study there.
Yes.
Because for me, I'm a musician and I wanted to study at a conservatoire. And three of the biggest conservatoires in the country are in areas where you can't get oxygen, or it's difficult to get oxygen. In London and the northwest, London and Manchester are particularly difficult. So even if I went for an interview there and discovered I really loved it there, it would be really difficult for me to study there because it would be difficult to get oxygen there. So I had to take that into consideration when choosing a place. But eventually I applied to the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in Glasgow, and I've been accepted there with a scholarship for the first year, actually.
Fantastic. That's wonderful news. Why is it difficult to get oxygen in those places? Surely there are people in Manchester and London that need oxygen too.
Yeah, I'll pass on to Mum. She's the ouch person who knows more about that than I do.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the issues that Ouch is working very hard on behind the scenes and has been doing for quite a long time. It should be that oxygen with a demand valve is available to all cluster headache sufferers in the UK. But unfortunately, this has not happened so far. And I know that there are some senior doctors who are trying really hard to change that. So please believe that we are working away in the background to change that situation. So it comes down to the oxygen supply companies only being able to supply what is on the prescription. And so in some cases, you'll get oxygen, but it won't have the correct valve for a demand valve. It will only have the valve for a non-rebreather mask. So quite a few people get the oxygen, but they don't get the elite demand valve, shall we say. So we're working on that as well. So keep tuned for more information on that with the Ouch website, but we are trying very hard to fix that. My involvement with Ouch started maybe a couple of years after Frederick's diagnosis, once everything had kind of calmed down and we got used to managing the condition. I've been in touch with them just to check on his symptoms, to check on his medication, just to get some support really, to say that, I wasn't alone, because Frederick's father and I, we just felt so isolated. Nobody else's child had this condition that we knew. We were so tired of trying to explain that it wasn't just a headache to all the other parents and all the
The
teachers and
number of
everybody that
people
we
have
knew.
said to me, "Oh, my cousin gets migraines," or "My cousin has a headache."
It's not the same. And the term
No.
cluster headache, I know, is controversial because
Yes.
it doesn't help describe what cluster headache is really like. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
So no, that's okay. So I just thought, after what we'd been through and what we'd seen Frederick suffer, I thought, I don't want to see any other parent go through this if it can be avoided at all. So I got in touch with Ouch and got talking to them, and I said, I think I can make a contribution here. I have lived this experience, and I can compare my child's experience to other people's, and if nothing else, I can be a listening ear that actually understands what parents are talking about when their child has this diagnosis. I can talk to them, parent to parent, about maybe some of the things that are not even essentially medical in nature, but just how do you comfort your child when this is happening? What do you say to them afterwards? How do you move them on from thinking about it?
Mm.
You've listeners probably know that cluster headache has a quite high suicide rate, higher than the average for the country. I did not want my child to be part of that statistic. So I'd really like to give something back, because Ouch really supported us when we were at our lowest time, just coming out of diagnosis when everything was new. So I decided to volunteer as an officer, and I am the officer for children and young people, given my experience. So if somebody calls the Ouch helpline or sends in an email to Ouch and thinks that their child may have cluster headache, they're getting symptoms that seem to point to cluster headache, or maybe they've already been diagnosed, they're put in touch with me, and we can talk through what's been happening to them and what treatments they're getting. I can give them advice on what to say to doctors, what to say to the school, what to say to family, friends, or children at school, and just try to support them through their experience, really.
Mm-hmm.
The latest thing I've been doing is working with Ouch on a series of infographic leaflets, which we can send out to families if they've been in touch with the Ouch helpline. It's things like a school accommodations leaflet for medical reasons. So it's how the school needs to react when the child has the cluster headache, what they might need in school on the premises, oxygen, a quiet room, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
The fact that they will be absent a lot and how that's handled for catch up, etc., for younger children. And then for, teenagers coming up to exams, basically what Frederick's been explaining earlier in the podcast, that accommodations will be needed, and to think about that well in advance, and not to get a few weeks before the exam and suddenly realize
Yeah.
that we need to put all these things into place.
Yeah.
So the other one I've been working on is something for younger children, which is kind of something they can pin up in their bedroom, which is very bright and interesting. It's sort of, I have a special headache problem. It's called this. My doctor's name is this. My tablet's name is this. I use oxygen for this. And it's just something that makes it a bit less scary. It's out in the open. It's just normal for them. They can show their friends when they have a visit. I have this medical condition and this is how I deal with it. And so we're trying to make it a bit more normal, a bit less scary, and something that they can openly talk about.
Yes, I think feeling that you're not alone as a sufferer or as a parent is such an important thing, isn't it, going
Yes,
forward?
very much.
It was one of the best things about the Ouch conference that we were at in the summer, is to meet other people who are sufferers and carers. It's incredible. Like maybe Nick Silver asked, if you're a sufferer, put your hand up,
Yeah.
and at least half the room put their hands up. That feeling of like, it's not just me anymore was incredible.
Yeah, yeah. I've been to several of the Ouch conferences, and I always urge members of my team at the National Migraine Centre, if they possibly can, to go along, purely to witness, the amazing work that Ouch does, and the fact, to learn really from people who have cluster headache. I was so impressed the first time I went, and the way that it's set up so supportively, and they announce, there's an oxygen room if you want to listen to the lectures, but you get an attack in the middle of a lecture.
Yeah.
So I'm always pointing people in the direction of joining, or at least looking at the Ouch website. So much useful information and support on there for people with cluster headache, or even people who are not sure, do I have cluster headache? Because I know several people who have clearly had migraine attacks over the years, but then have sadly had cluster headache, and they kind of go, well, this one's different. And Ouch has that excellent quiz on the website saying, do I have cluster headache? So brilliant. Do you, in your normal day-to-day life, do you know anybody that you connect with, Frederick, who's had a similar story to you? Or
The only other people who, not me personally, my mum has spoken to with children with cluster headaches are the people she works with throughout.
Yes.
There's no one else we know of.
Maybe that we need to have a little session for connecting young
Yeah.
people together with cluster. So no family history of headaches in your family?
There's a small history of migraines, but I mean they're completely different. But no, nothing of clusters.
Yeah. Migraine is such a different experience for people,
Yeah.
though it can give very severe headaches. The onset of migraine attacks tends to be much more gradual, and they last over the course of a few days rather than this sort of on off business. And the agitation is so key with the cluster headaches, where with people with migraine, and speaking personally, I know if I have a migraine attack, I have to sit very, very still because movement aggravates it. So I always like to kind of review those key things when we're talking about cluster headaches, so that people become aware of those quite key questions that need to be asked to the diagnosis. As part of this little series of podcasts on cluster headache, I have been speaking to a couple of researchers, and I wondered if the two of you have any burning questions that you would like research scientists to answer, so we can feed that back to them and say, please, will you study this? Frederick, have you got anything that you'd like them to
Well, I
look
mean,
at?
the biggest question is, is there an end in sight? Will there ever be a permanent or long-term cure?
Yeah,
I think
cure.
that's the biggest question.
Yeah,
Will it ever be over?
yes, yeah. And Rachel, I'm guessing yours is the same.
I think so, yes. I mean, unless there's less invasive treatments than, sprays and tablets and inhaling oxygen, I don't know what that could be. But I think the other thing as well is how do we get funding for more research so that we can reach that goal? You mentioned raising awareness, and I know Ouch does an awful lot, and we have people who are so devoted to fundraising for Ouch, but of course they don't receive any other money to help at all. So we desperately need more funding so that the research can be done and that the sufferers can get some relief.
Yeah, yeah. So more research funding from the people that have the cash, the pot of money.
Yeah.
No, I agree with
And raising awareness, like you said. I mean,
Yeah.
the numbers of people that have cluster headache in the UK, it's broadly the same as the number of people with spina bifida or with multiple sclerosis. And if you asked a member of the public, they will have heard of those two conditions, but they won't have heard of cluster headache. And how could they, when a lot of the medical profession have either not heard of it or had 10 minutes on it at medical school? It's
Yeah.
so very much unknown and misunderstood in a lot of cases.
I agree that I was speaking to a headache specialist nurse recently, and she was really, really fighting in the trust that she works to get an extra pair of hands to help her in the clinic. She's overwhelmed with the number of people that she's trying to get through who have either migraine or cluster headache. But she said the multiple sclerosis nurses, there are 5 of them, and they were applying for another one, and were very likely to get the funding. And you kind of think, well, this is a real issue, isn't it? That there is an understanding that multiple sclerosis is a chronic and ongoing condition, that people need support, need research, and all of this. And yet, with headache conditions, and do you think it's the word headache that is the problem, that people kind of shrug and go, well, it's just a headache?
It makes it seem so much lesser. You
Yeah,
the phrase "I've got a headache" and "I'm having a cluster attack" are, completely different things, but they can both use the word headache.
yeah. Any ideas what we could call it instead?
Ouch is working on that as well.
Yeah.
But
Not without the
I
use of
mean,
swear words.
yeah, I think we tend to go back to the Latin, and we often say to people it's trigeminal autonomic cephalalgia, one of them, and
That
that
tends to scare them.
suddenly you use that wording and you've got people's attention. Oh, that sounds like something serious.
Yeah.
We haven't heard of that. What is that? So we try and avoid the word headache at all costs, really. We tend to call them cluster attacks, or we'll describe Frederick as having a chronic neurological disease.
Mm,
And that tends to get people's attention more.
mm. I know over the years cluster headache has been called different things, some fancy names, and none of them have really properly described the hideousness of cluster.
I think we often recommend people go onto YouTube and watch someone having a cluster headache attack, and you will never think of it as a headache again.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really important. We sometimes recommend to patients, who are struggling to get oxygen from their providers for whatever reason, take a video of yourself if you can, or get somebody else, because often when you're in an attack yourself, you don't want to be faffing about with a phone. But
we did that actually when I was trying to get diagnosed. My mum videoed me having multiple attacks, and we gave this to the neurologist to say, "This is what's happening. What do we do?"
Okay, and that is a really helpful thing to do. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else that either of you would like to say as a message to other people with cluster headache?
To quote Ouch, is that you're not alone. There are other people. There is a huge community of people working to try and help everyone, help you. And you're not alone. There are other people there who are their whole purpose is to help you.
Yeah.
It's like if you can use the services throughout, and they'll be there to help whenever.
Yeah. And you strike me as a very cheerful and positive person who's getting on with their life.
I'm never going to let it stop me. It's just, although it's a part of my life, it's not a big part of my life. It's just there in the corner. It irritates me, not the right word, but it's there and comes out every so often and goes away then. And I don't let it stop me.
It doesn't define you either.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. It doesn't define me.
Yeah. And just carrying on from what Frederick's saying there about not being alone, Ouch can support parents who have children with cluster headache, and we can give them advice what to do. So one of the things I would say is practical things first. Get all your paperwork in one place. Get the doctor's letters, the diagnosis letter, the prescriptions. Keep it all together in a file, because at some point you're going to have to keep explaining what's happened and what your child has. And it's good to have all these things in one place. The second thing is you're going to have a lot of medical appointments. So try not to make that appointment just about medical problems. So if you can manage it, go out for a milkshake afterwards or a McDonald's. Go and buy a new toy. Go and try a new game when you get home. Go to a place that the child loves afterwards. Try not to make that day just about the medical condition. Try and make it something else as well. I know that worked a lot for me and Frederick.
That's what we did,
dad. Yeah, so me and Frederick's dad would take him out for a very sickly, sweet milkshake ice cream concoction or something afterwards, so that became the focus rather than what we'd just been told in the doctor's office.
When I go back and I think about those days, I think, oh, we went to the Botanic Gardens that day. Oh, we had toasty afterwards. I don't think we went to the hospital and I got told I had a horrible medical condition,
That's really good advice, yeah.
The other thing I would say is keep in constant communication with the school, whatever age the child is, because they won't understand at all. You need to spend a lot of time advocating. We actually sent emails to start with, but we ended up going in and actually sitting with teachers, heads of department, head teachers, just for that one-on-one connection to say, this is what is happening to this child. Especially when you get into high school, because all teenagers have angst, they all have issues and problems and, typical teenager stresses. But on top of that, this child is carrying this huge weight as well, and they know they're going to have to deal with it for the rest of their life. So they need a little bit of extra time to do things, a little bit of extra help to get where they need to be going. And importantly for the parents as well is look after yourself, because watching your child go through that kind of pain is not easy.
Yeah.
We're hardwired as parents to try and stop that, to soothe the child, to stop the crying, to fix the problem. And your brain is screaming at you to do that. And you can't, there's literally nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So look after yourself, talk to other people, find someone that can be your release, your pressure valve, so that you could get that off your chest as well. Because you can't help the child if your mental health is getting damaged as well. So just take some time for yourself. If the child is sleeping, try to just take a hot bath, relax, watch your favorite movie, whatever it is. Just try to have a little bit of time that's not about caring for your chronically ill child. That would be my advice. That's what I had to do. And reach out, go to Ouch, get some support, pick the email up, pick the phone up, talk to me or talk to one of the officers on the helpline, and you will feel better, I promise, when you know that you're not alone.
That's brilliant advice. Yes, because Ouch does have a helpline that officers will be manning during the normal office hours, I think it is, isn't it, Rachel?
Yeah, if you just leave a message and they will come straight back to as soon as possible, yes, because it is run by volunteers. Yeah.
And I'm guessing, going back to what you were saying about school and keeping in contact with school, it's with you, Frederick, being chronic, it's something you have to talk about with school all the time. But in a way, if
all the time.
If people are episodic and their cluster headache bout finishes and then they have a long gap without, it would be quite easy, I guess, for schools to kind of think, oh, well, that was that and that's finished.
Yeah.
So it's that understanding that this can come back unpredictably at different times of year, and they still need to be bearing in mind that it's a chronic condition, even if it's occurring in episodes.
Yeah. Like at the beginning of this school year, I sat down with every one of my higher subject teachers, and it said, right, this is what is happening. This is what will happen during the year. I will not be here between these months and these months because I will be ill. And they'll say, oh, well, can you do this over school? Like, no, when I'm not here, I am not here and I cannot do work. I am ill with a chronic medical condition. Nothing that you're saying here will happen. And I have to sit down with every one of them and explain not only what's going to happen in the year, but also what the class. You know, I might have to leave halfway through the class and I might not come back. I might have a class attack, or you know, you might not see me for the entire week, but you might see me the next day and I'll look fine. You know, I have to explain how everything works to all of my subject teachers beginning of every year, especially when I have new teachers as well that haven't taught me before.
Yeah. So on a lighter note, tell me about your music. What's your instrument, or is it voice, or many instruments?
Well, I play 4 instruments. I play the piano, I sing, I play the piano accordion and the pipe organ.
Oh, amazing.
And I also compose, I write my own music. And as I mentioned earlier, I've just been accepted into the undergraduate composition course at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland in Glasgow, with a scholarship as well for the first year.
That's absolutely wonderful. Now, I hope to hear some of your music one day.
Of course.
Actually, cluster headache has one redeeming feature, doesn't it, Frederick, in that unfortunately it has taken him to places in his mental health where nobody wants to go, but he's been able to draw on those experiences and put that kind of emotion into his music. And after bad bouts of cluster headache, he's actually done some great compositions or played the piano. It's actually a kind of therapy for Frederick that he manages to get over those cluster cycles through music.
Before I was diagnosed, because I spent nearly 2 years while I was undiagnosed away from music and unable to even get downstairs to play the piano. And that's one of the reasons why my mental health took such a dive, because I didn't have the emotional outlet that music is for me. And the first time that I was able to get downstairs to the piano, I played the piano for 4 hours without a break because I needed this emotional release, and I felt so much better after that. It was unbelievable. And when I've had a lot of bad cluster attacks, say I've had a really terrible week with them, I just release everything that's inside of me out onto the page, and I let it, I pour it out, and it's like, some other children might be playing football or playing video games. Like for me, it's pouring out into my music, either playing or writing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think that's a good place to finish this podcast episode with the joy of imagining you playing your emotions, and with my very best wishes and good luck for your course in Glasgow.
Thank you.
And thank you again to both of you. This has been really fascinating and also hopefully very helpful to anybody else that's going through suffering this horrible condition. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Coming up next time on Heads Up, we explore the science behind cluster headache as translational neuroscientist Dr. Philip Holland discusses what's happening in the brain. Thank you for listening to the Heads Up podcast. Visit our website to book your appointment with a world-class headache doctor wherever you are in the UK. There is no need for a referral. You can refer yourself. Our headache specialist doctors are looking forward to helping you soon.